Caleb Holt built empires in silence, but one crayon drawing in a Brooklyn shelter shatters everything he thought he knew. A shy girl named Lily hands him a picture of Daddy, a man who looks just like him. Haunted by a past love and a cousin's betrayal, Caleb uncovers a truth buried in lies. Sarah never left him. She was pushed away. And Lily? She's his daughter. Determined to reclaim the time he lost, Caleb trades billion-dollar deals for sketchbooks and sidewalk chalk. He skips mergers to watch Lily draw. But will a drawing be enough to mend a family torn apart? One rooftop garden, one girl's sketch, one chance to be a father. Subscribe to see this heartfelt story unfold. The sound of wealth was silence. That's how Caleb Holt liked it. His penthouse, high above the noise of Manhattan, was spotless, lifeless. Glass walls, steel counters, a vintage jazz record humming faintly in the background. Everything controlled, everything except his regrets. "I built this empire," he muttered, pouring a drink he didn't want, "but I couldn't hold on to her." The name Sarah still echoed like unfinished music. 10 years since she walked out of his life, or so he believed. 10 years since he traded love for legacy, smiles for spreadsheets, and no matter how loud the city got, that silence still screamed. That morning his cousin Greg had called, smooth as ever, cutting in. "There's a photo op at the Brooklyn shelter this afternoon," Greg had said. "Donors will love it. Take your smile." Caleb didn't care for PR, but guilt, that had weight, so he went. The shelter was crammed, mismatched chairs, peeling walls, art projects hanging from strings across the ceiling like fragile prayers. Kids chased each other between rows of crates. And in the far corner, a quiet table with colored pencils and bent paper. That's where he saw her. A girl, maybe 9, sat alone, tongue poked out in concentration, her hand moving carefully over crayon strokes. When she looked up, their eyes met. Big, brown, familiar. She didn't speak, just held up her drawing, a sketch of a tall man in a navy suit with his exact eyes. Underneath, scrawled in orange, "Daddy." Shocked, Caleb froze. "What's your name?" he asked, softly, kneeling down. She tilted her head. "Lily." He didn't breathe. Shocked, Lily. That was the name Sarah always said she'd give their daughter, if they ever had one. Caleb stared at the sketch again. The hair, the tie, even the little smile. "Where'd you see this man, Lily?" She blinked. "He's in my dreams." Caleb's chest ached like something had caved in. He turned to one of the volunteers. Can I speak to someone about this girl's file?" "Sorry, sir," the woman replied, cautious. "We don't release information without parental consent." He nodded numbly, backing away, the drawing still burning in his vision. The silence in his penthouse was louder than usual. He pulled open an old drawer he hadn't touched in years. Inside, a photo. Him and Sarah on a rooftop in autumn. She was laughing. He wasn't. "Did you try to find me, Sarah? Or did I never look hard enough?" He couldn't sleep, not with Lily's face carved into his memory, or the drawing. The next morning, he canceled meetings, silenced Greg's calls, and returned to the shelter. She was there again. This time drawing flowers. He brought her a brand new set of colored pencils and a sketch pad. She lit up, but stayed quiet. Just nodded once, then went back to her work. One of the volunteers whispered, "That's Lily. Sweet girl. Been here almost a year. Mom's complicated. Doesn't talk to many." Caleb felt a storm building. That drawing, it wasn't just art. It was a message, a question, maybe a test. By evening, he stood outside the shelter's rusted gate, phone pressed to his ear. "Greg," he said coldly, "do you remember Sarah?" There was a long pause. "Why? That was over a decade ago. Ancient history." Caleb's voice dropped. Threatening. "She has a daughter named Lily. Looks just like me." Another silence. "Greg?" Cutting in, flat. "I wouldn't jump to conclusions." But Caleb already had. And something in Greg's tone felt off. Reflective. He hung up. stared at the sky, then pulled the drawing from his coat pocket. Lily's daddy, him. A symbol of what had been lost, and maybe what could be found. If that little girl's mine, I'm not walking away again. That night, he asked his assistant to find everything on Sarah Harper, old addresses, hospital records, anything. But what he uncovered next would unravel everything he thought he knew. The next morning, Caleb barely touched his espresso. The city outside his penthouse moved like clockwork, taxis buzzing, horns blaring, success measured by seconds. But inside, time slowed. Lily's drawing lay on the counter, the word daddy still pulsing like a bruise. Sarah, he murmured, sad. Why didn't you tell me? His assistant, Paige, knocked gently and entered with a manila folder. Found her, she said. Sarah Harper. Lives in Brooklyn, off Bergen Street. She works part-time at a non-profit. Used to teach art. Caleb's breath caught. Art. Paige nodded. No listed partner. One child, Lily Harper, born 9 years ago. 9. He closed his eyes. It added up. That afternoon, he traded his tailored suit for jeans and a hoodie. No press, no car service. He wanted to walk. Didn't widen, they hardened. Flat. What are you doing here? Caleb stepped back slightly. Softly, I didn't know. About Lily, I just... Cutting in, save it. Her voice didn't shake, but her hand gripped the doorframe. I found her drawing, he said, at the shelter. She drew me. Sarah's jaw clenched. Coldly. That was a mistake, sad. She called the man in the picture Daddy. Sarah, I didn't know, shouts. Didn't want to know, Caleb. You made your choice, remember? He swallowed. No, I didn't. Greg, he said you moved on, that you didn't want... She turned away. Whispers, of course, Greg said that. She let him into the hallway reluctantly. The apartment inside was small, barely 2 rooms, a worn couch, an easel near the window, and a shelf with children's books and crayon tins stacked like treasure. Caleb looked around, overwhelmed. She lives here? She thrives here, Sarah snapped. Don't confuse poverty with failure. He nodded. Softly, I'm not here to take her. Sarah paused. Then why? Caleb reached into his coat and gently pulled out Lily's sketch. She saw something I forgot how to believe in. Sarah stared, the crayon lines, the soft orange letters. A sigh escaped her lips. She always asked, Sarah said, sitting down, why her drawings looked like you, why she liked numbers. I told her it was coincidence. Caleb sat across from her quietly. Why didn't you call me? She looked him in the eye. Whispers, because Greg told me you didn't want kids, that you laughed when I said I was pregnant. He gave me a letter. You said you wanted freedom. Caleb's heart stopped. A letter? She nodded. Said it came from you. Back in the penthouse that night, Caleb rifled through his old files, receipts, contracts, press clippings, then a letter, typo, cold. But it wasn't his voice. I never wrote this, he whispered, sad. Greg. The betrayal thudded louder than his heartbeat. 2 days later, Caleb returned to the shelter. Lily was drawing a tree. He knelt beside her, laying down a wrapped box. What's this? She asked, shyly, softly. Something to help you draw bigger dreams. Inside, a watercolor set, brushes, a fresh sketchbook, and a tiny golden pin shaped like a crayon. Her eyes sparkled. Thank you, she whispered. Can I sit? He asked. She nodded. They sat in silence, 2 strangers, coloring their way into something new. Later, as he walked out into the Brooklyn dusk, Paige called. You missed the Singapore call. I know. They want to close tomorrow. Quietly. Push it. Caleb, are you okay? He looked up. The sky was lavender, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. No, he said, softly, but I might be getting there. That night, Caleb stood outside Greg's penthouse with the forged letter in hand, and what he would uncover next would shake the foundation of everything he believed about family. A drum. His cousin's penthouse once a symbol of trust, now felt like enemy territory. He knocked. Once, twice. Calm. Cold. "Open the door, Greg." It swung open. Greg, tall, polished, in a wine-colored sweater, smiled. Too easily. Pleasant. "Well, if it isn't the prodigal cousin." Caleb stepped inside without a word. The door clicked shut behind them. He tossed the letter on the kitchen island. Flat. "Recognize that?" Greg raised an eyebrow. "Looks like you dumped someone." Caleb's jaw clenched. Shouts. "I never wrote it." Cutting in. "And?" Greg leaned back, folding his arms. No denial, just silence. "You told Sarah I wanted her gone," Caleb said, voice shaking. "You handed her that letter and told me she left." Greg finally sighed. Calmly. "You were 2 months away from inheriting the firm. I couldn't let you derail everything for some art teacher." "She's the mother of my daughter." Greg's smile faded. "She's my family," Caleb continued. "And you took that from me." The silence was thick. Then Greg shrugged. "She would have ruined you, Caleb. You were too soft. I gave you clarity." Starts laughing, bitterly. "You gave me a lie." Caleb turned for the door, disgust rising in his throat. "You're going to fix this," he muttered, "and I'm going to be a father, no matter what it costs." Greg's voice followed him, low and smug. "We'll see how long she lets you play daddy." Back at the shelter that evening, Caleb knelt beside Lily again. She was drawing rooftops, tiny people on benches, birds mid-flight. "Can I see?" he asked. She looked up, nodded, then hesitated. Softly, "You're the man from my picture." Caleb smiled, gently. "I think I am." He sat beside her, handed her a new marker, sky blue, her favorite. She reached for it and paused. "Mom says you're busy, too busy to stay." Caleb swallowed. Whispers. "Your mom's right. I was, but not anymore." She said nothing, just went back to her drawing. But her hand lingered near his. Later, as Sarah left the kitchen with clean mugs, she found Caleb still there, alone. "You came back." He nodded. "I confronted Greg," he said quietly. "He admitted everything, the letter, the lies." Sarah lowered her eyes. "I should have—" A surprise waiting. A new sketch pad. On the first page, a rooftop garden, drawn in soft pastels. She looked up, excited. "That's my secret place." Caleb smiled. "I thought maybe you'd show it to me." Lily paused. "Maybe." Then she reached into her pocket, pulled out a folded paper, a new drawing, 3 figures, a man, a woman, and a little girl holding both their hands. Caleb blinked, heart caught in his throat. Sad. "Is that us?" Lily nodded, shyly. "I call it home." But while Caleb began to rebuild trust, Greg had other plans. And the next envelope Caleb would receive wouldn't come with crayons. It would come from court. The envelope was thick, heavy with consequence. Caleb stood in his foyer, coat half off, frozen. The legal stationery bore the Holt & Holt insignia, the family firm Greg now controlled. Inside, a custody petition. Shouts, "Petition for legal guardianship?" He read aloud, stunned. Greg is filing for custody of Lily? He dropped the papers on the marble counter, breath caught in his chest. Sad. He's still trying to keep her from me. The next morning, Caleb drove through Manhattan traffic like it was war. He stormed into the Midtown law office his father once built. Greg's office, sleek and glass-walled, overlooked the city skyline, but the only thing Caleb saw was betrayal. Greg looked up from his desk, calm, sipping espresso. Casual. "Did you get my little notice?" Caleb didn't sit. He slammed the papers down. Angry. "You think you can adopt my daughter? You think after everything?" Cutting in. "She's not yours legally," Greg said smoothly. "And Sarah's vulnerable. You've been in her life for, what, 2 weeks?" Caleb's hands curled into fists. Shouts. "You lied to me. You forged that breakup letter. You buried every message she sent." Greg's expression tightened. "You were never meant to be a father," he snapped. "You were built to run empires. That girl is a distraction." Caleb's voice dropped low. Whispers. "She's the only thing that matters now." Greg leaned forward, cold, calculated. "Then I guess we'll see who the court believes." That night, Caleb returned to his loft, alone. He opened the kitchen drawer where he kept Lily's newest drawing, a stick figure family, crayon-colored under a pink sun. He stared at it, too long. Then, something shifted. A memory. His phone buzzed, deep in the archive folder. Old texts, years-old backups. A conversation he never saw. "Caleb, I'm pregnant. I need to talk." Followed by silence. Hundreds of unread messages, photos, voicemail. "But I found the messages. From you. From then." Sarah's eyes widened. She reached out, trembling fingers grazing the screen. "I sent these. The week before I left." Caleb nodded. "He intercepted everything. Emails, calls. I had no idea." Her shoulders sagged. She sat on the bench, silent for a long moment. "I thought you stopped caring," she said. "Thought you made your choice." "I didn't," he whispered. "But I let him make it for me." He sat beside her. "I want to fix this," he said. "Not just win, build something better." She met his eyes, finally. Tired, but soft. "You don't have to fix me, Caleb. I want to fix us." Downstairs, Lily's voice rang through the stairwell. "Mom, look what I made!" She held up a collage of paper flowers, every petal a different color, her name scribbled in the corner. Caleb knelt beside her. "That's beautiful." She looked up at him. "Will you come tomorrow? We're doing rainbows." Caleb smiled. Wouldn't miss it for the world. He took her hand gently, and this time, she didn't pull away. But outside, a black car waited at the curb. Inside, Greg dialed a number. "Get the best custody lawyer in the city. Money's not a problem. That girl isn't going anywhere." Caleb sat alone in his penthouse loft, the city glittering through floor-to-ceiling windows. But inside, everything felt quiet. Too quiet. On the coffee table, a stack of papers he hadn't touched. Merger contracts, quarterly reports, asset sheets, all waiting. Next to them, Lily's crayon drawing. A stick figure man in a navy suit, a little girl holding his hand. Above them, in shaky bubble letters, Daddy. He traced the waxy lines with a trembling finger. "She sees me like this, but I don't even know who I am anymore." At the shelter the next morning, Lily was in the art room, alone at the far table. Paper scraps and markers surrounded her like a fortress. Caleb stood at the door, unsure. Then, excited, "I made clouds today," she said without looking up. He stepped in. slowly, careful not to break the moment. "Clouds?" he asked, kneeling beside her. "Can I see?" She held up a cutout collage. Puffy gray cotton balls floated over a chalk blue sky. In the bottom corner, a tiny figure under an umbrella. "That's me," she whispered. "I get wet, but it's okay. I like rain." Caleb swallowed. "You don't need to stand in the rain alone anymore." She paused, then pointed to an empty spot beside her drawing. "I was going to put someone here," she said. "Drawing? But I've never earned that place." She looked at him now, tired eyes, guarded. "You left," she said simply, "and when I needed you most, you weren't there." "I didn't know." "Because Greg made sure you wouldn't," she snapped. Then softer, "But still, you didn't come." He sighed, rubbing his temple. "I spent years chasing numbers, building towers, but I never built anything that mattered." Silence. Then Sarah handed him the watering can. "Start small," she said. "Water something that needs you." That night, Caleb returned to his loft, but it felt different now. Too sterile, too echoing. He walked past the gleaming marble kitchen, untouched. Into his office, he pulled out the leather portfolio where he kept Lily's drawings now. The latest one made him pause. It was a sketch of a rooftop, with flowers, and a woman sitting alone. Above her, faint pencil marks, erased, then redrawn, a figure approaching from the side. Caleb stared at it, for a long time. She's drawing hope. He picked up his phone, dialed. "Marshall? Yeah. I need to cancel the Tokyo meeting, push the whole deal. I've got something more important." The next morning, the shelter buzzed with light and laughter. Caleb stood in the main hall with a hammer in hand, hanging a new corkboard labeled Kids Art Gallery. Lily approached, shyly, holding a fresh drawing. "This one's for the wall," she said. It was her cloud collage, but now the tiny umbrella figure wasn't alone. A taller figure stood beside her, holding the same umbrella. Excited. "See?" she said. "Now we both stay dry." Caleb blinked. His throat tightened. He knelt, looking her in the eyes, softly. "Thank you, Lily." She leaned in, hugged him for the first time. Just as Sarah walked in, watching, unsure, but her arms crossed a little softer now. But the peace didn't last long. That afternoon, a lawyer arrived at the shelter with a formal letter, signed by Greg. Greg was filing for emergency custody, and this time, he brought the media. The letter was thick, cream-colored, and sealed with embossed gold. Caleb read it once, then again. "Petition for emergency custody," it said in bold. "Filed by Gregory Holt. Accusation: Sarah Brown is unfit, the child is neglected, and Caleb, emotionally unstable. He's trying to steal my daughter." Caleb growled, slamming the paper on the shelter desk. Sarah flinched. "She's our daughter," she said quietly. "But Greg, he always planned this." Caleb looked at her, really looked. The lines under her eyes, the way her fingers trembled as she gripped the letter. She wasn't angry. She was scared. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, softer now. "Why did you disappear without a word?" Sarah exhaled slowly, then turned. "Mistake. That you were focused on the Holt legacy." Caleb froze. "That's not true." Sarah nodded slowly. "I see that now, but back then, I believed him." He knelt beside her. "I never got that letter. Never heard you were pregnant." "I wrote you," she said, pulling a folded page from her purse. Yellowed at the edges, handwritten, tear-stained. He opened it with shaking hands. It was her voice in ink. "I don't want anything," it read. "Just to know if you'll care. If not for me, then for the child." He read it again, and again. "Greg took this." She nodded. "And he made sure you never saw me again." Later that evening, The rooftop garden above Caleb's building was quiet. Lily sat on a crate, a sketch pad on her knees. Caleb stood nearby, pacing. "She believed I didn't want them," he muttered. "Greg's been playing us both." Lily looked up. "Who's Greg?" Caleb crouched beside her, picked up a purple crayon she'd dropped. "My cousin," he said. "He told your mom lies so I'd never find you." Lily blinked. "Why?" "Because he didn't want me to change. He wanted me to stay in the family business. Stay hollow." Lily didn't answer right away, just flipped her sketch pad around. A new drawing. A cracked heart stitched with thread. Inside it, a small flower blooming. Caleb stared. "What's this?" She smiled gently. "It's you and Mommy and me getting better." His voice caught. "Lily, I don't know how to fix everything, but I promise I'll never stop trying." The next day, Caleb confronted Greg. In a downtown office tower, sterile and glass-polished, Greg stood smug behind a desk. "Caleb, I saw your face on the news. You and that girl at the shelter? Great optics. Real charitable." Caleb didn't smile. "You intercepted Sarah's letter, lied to both of us, kept me chained to this company while my daughter grew up without a father." Greg shrugged. "You're overreacting. You were emotional. I did what was best for the family." Caleb stepped closer, voice low and steady. "You stole my life, Greg." Greg's smirk faded. Caleb dropped the letter on the desk. "I'm going to court, and when this comes out, you're going to lose more than your job." He turned to go. "Oh, and Greg?" He looked back. "Family doesn't lie like that. You were never mine." Back at the shelter, Sarah was helping Lily pin drawings to the new corkboard. Lily whispered something in her ear and darted off, giggling. Caleb approached slowly. "I'm going to fight this. Greg's done pretending." Sarah nodded. "I'm sorry I didn't trust you back then," she said.
Board of directors. If he testified in court, he'd lose his seat at Holt Finance. And Greg wasn't done playing dirty. The mural had barely begun. Lily stood on a step stool, painting bright orange rays into a rising sun, her fingers smudged with color, her laughter echoing down the Brooklyn alley. Starts laughing. "This one's for the flowers, Dad." Caleb smiled from below, holding her paint tray steady. He never corrected her. Not yet, but in his heart, the word Dad bloomed like spring. Sarah leaned nearby, watching. "You've been here every day this week," she said, almost teasing. "I'd rather be here than in boardrooms with Greg." But just as the sun rose on that mural, clouds gathered fast. That night, Caleb opened the envelope slid beneath his apartment door. "Notice of custody petition," it read. "Filed by Gregory Holt." The attached affidavit called Caleb emotionally volatile, obsessed with image, and financially manipulative. He blinked, jaw tightening. Shouts. "He's going after her, again." He called Sarah. She picked up on the first ring. Her voice was tense. "He served me too, claimed we're both unfit, said the shelter's unsafe." "He wants to tear us apart," Caleb whispered. "Not because he cares about Lily, but because he knows she's what makes me walk away from Holt Capital." There was a pause. Then Sarah's voice cracked, sad. "I won't let him take her. Not again." The next morning at the shelter garden, Caleb found Lily alone. She was sitting in the dirt, cradling something in her lap, her sketch pad. He knelt beside her. Softly, "What are you working on?" She didn't look up, just flipped the page. A drawing. A cartoon courtroom. In it she stood between two tall adults. One wore a tie, the other held a paintbrush. Between them, a heart cracked. Caleb swallowed hard.
whispers. You know what's happening? She nodded. Greg said you'd go away. Said you're too busy. He reached out gently. I don't want to go anywhere. She hesitated, then handed him the crayon she'd been gripping. Blue, worn down to the paper. I only trust people who color. Caleb took the crayon and began to draw, right there in the dirt beside her sketchbook. He added a garden, one filled with sunflowers, one where they all stayed. Later, in a tense meeting at the courthouse, Greg arrived with a smirk and 3 lawyers. Caleb came alone until Sarah walked in beside him. She handed the judge a sealed envelope. Your Honor, she said clearly, this is the original letter I wrote to Mr. Holt 9 years ago, intercepted by the petitioner. Greg shifted in his chair. The judge raised a brow. And your proof of that? Sarah looked to
Company forever. Outside the courthouse, the air was colder, but Lily ran up, wind catching her ponytail. Excited. You saw it, right? The picture? Caleb nodded. I did. And the sunflowers? She asked. I'll build the whole garden, he whispered, even if I lose everything else. Sarah watched them, her walls crumbling, her eyes softening. Quietly, You've changed. He smiled. Lily changed me. But as hope took root, Greg made his boldest move yet. He threatened to freeze Caleb's assets. And the mural, barely sketched, was suddenly at risk of disappearing. Would Caleb trade everything just to keep coloring beside his daughter? The storm came fast. 2 days after court, Caleb stood in his corner office, watching the city lights flicker beyond the glass. Below, Holt Capital's boardroom buzzed with suits prepping for a $90 million merger. But his thoughts were somewhere else. In a Brooklyn shelter, with a girl who handed him a blue crayon and trusted him to color her world. Caleb didn't blink. She's not just some kid. Greg stared at the screen, then answered. Don't call me again. Greg stared at the screen, then answered. Don't call me, servicely. Sarah said, Greg. Caleb stared at the screen, then answered. Don't call me again. Greg stared at the screen, then answered. Lasts. But this room will. She smiled. Starts laughing. Then I'm going to paint dragons. He laughed too. And I'll paint sunflowers beside them. But just as things began to bloom, Greg struck again. A press article hit the next morning. Disgraced CEO Caleb Holt abandons empire amid paternity scandal. Donors pulled out. Board members froze assets. Even the shelter's director called Caleb into her office. I can't have this place turned into a circus, she said firmly. I get it, Caleb said, but please, just give me till Monday. She hesitated, then nodded. 3 days. That night, Caleb found Lily sketching in the rooftop garden, her little hands smudged in green and gold. Do you think people believe I'm yours? She asked, eyes focused on the paper. He sat beside her. I don't care what they believe, he said softly. I know what I feel. She turned the drawing toward him. It was the 3 of them, standing under a tree, Sarah, Lily, Caleb. Above them, a sign read, This is ours. Caleb looked at the paper, heart heavy. But Monday was coming, and with it, the decision to keep fighting or walk away once more. Would he risk everything, name, money, future, for the right to stay in that crayon-colored world? Monday arrived with a cold wind. Inside the shelter, the walls of the new crayon room still smelled faintly of paint and possibility. But outside, cameras gathered. Caleb sat on a folding stool, a green crayon in one hand, Lily's latest drawing in the other. A family, under a tree. Him, Sarah, Lily. Together. Behind him, Sarah watched, arms folded, guarded as always. He looked up.
softly. She believes in us. Sarah didn't answer right away. I wish I could say the same about the world. His phone buzzed again. Greg. The text? 1 meeting, 1 hour, your future back in your hands. And below it, a location. The penthouse office Caleb once ruled. He stared at it, then glanced at Lily, giggling in the corner as she turned an old shoebox into a fairy castle. Starts laughing. She used paper towel rolls for turrets. Sarah smirked. Told you she's got vision. He exhaled, then stood. I need to settle something. Greg was already waiting. Lounge spread, espresso on the tray, trademark smirk in place. Well, if it isn't the prodigal father, Greg said, leaning back. You've got 3 hours left before they vote you out of the trust completely. Caleb stepped forward, calm, collected. Firmly. I'm not here to save my fortune, Greg. Greg blinked. You're throwing away Holt capital for crayons? For a little girl.
Contract in half.
This was never my legacy.
Back at the shelter, Lily was waiting in the crayon room with 2 sets of brushes. When he walked in, she ran to him.
I saved you the sky!
He knelt beside her, heart full.
Good, 'cause I've never drawn one before.
They painted together in silence, just the brush strokes and the light rustle of newspaper on the floors. Lily paused.
Why did you come back?
He hesitated, then looked at her.
Because your drawing reminded me I had something to come back to.
She smiled, then held up her newest sketch. A building, windows painted with stars, a wide front door. She pointed.
It's our new art center.
He stared, eyes dampening.
You want to build this?
With you.
She nodded. That night, Caleb made the call. The property near the shelter, a derelict building he once walked past without seeing, would become the Lily Center. Not a gallery, not a school, a sanctuary. He reached into his wallet and pulled out a folded drawing, Lily's first, the one that looked just like him. He pressed it to his heart, whispering,
You saved me first, kid.
3 weeks later, the scaffolding came down. Children filled the space with laughter and ink. A mural stretched across one wall, dragons and sunflowers. A crayon sun in the corner, initials written underneath in crooked lettering. C+L+S Caleb, Lily, Sarah. But just as things bloomed, Caleb found a letter taped to the crayon room door. From Sarah. 6 words. She deserves the whole truth now. The envelope was light, but in Caleb's hands, it weighed like truth. He stood alone in the crayon room, shelter quiet now after hours. Kids' laughter still lingered in the walls. On the back of the letter, Sarah had drawn a tiny flower, like the ones Lily always sketched when she was nervous. He unfolded it slowly.
Caleb, she's ready to show you her world. I think I am too.
Morning sun spilled across the rooftop. Not the glass and marble tower where Caleb once signed million-dollar deals, but the shelter's roof garden, where hope grew in plastic planters and chipped pots. Lily was already there, bent over her sketchbook, tongue between her teeth, focused. Caleb approached quietly.
Hey, artist.
She looked up, eyes lighting.
It's ready.
She turned the book, a full sketch of the garden, but different. Flowers bloomed like fireworks. Vines curled into hearts. In the center, 3 stick figures. Her, Caleb, Sarah. Below it in crayon, Where We Grow Again. His throat tightened.
You made this?
Lily nodded.
I want to build it here, so no one ever has to feel alone again.
I used to feel that way a lot.
Caleb knelt beside her.
Me too.
Later that day, Sarah stood at the garden's edge. Same place where she once cried alone after Caleb never returned. Sarah stepped forward. I still don't know if I can trust you. He wiped sweat from his brow. I'm not asking for that. Not yet. She tilted her head. Then what are you asking for? He looked up, eyes raw. A chance. To be the man she already thinks I am. That evening, Lily placed her garden sketch on the new art center's welcome desk. Beneath it, she added a line in bold purple. Hope lives here. Sarah watched her. She's already rewriting the ending. Caleb turned to her. Then let's give her something worth writing. 2 weeks passed. Every Saturday, Lily led garden drawing time. Kids planted basil, then sketched what they hoped it would become. Sarah brought sun tea, sometimes stayed, sometimes didn't. Caleb never missed a session. One morning, Lily ran over, smudged with charcoal. We're building a new mural. You and Mom have to help. Sarah blinked. I didn't agree to that. Cutting in, Lily tugged her hand. It's our wall. Caleb smiled. She already voted. The mural began as swirls and vines. Lily's hand traced the sky. Caleb added a tiny garden bench. Sarah hesitated, then picked up a brush. A tulip bloomed under her touch. Lily gasped. That's my favorite. Sarah smiled, surprised. Mine too. Later, as the sun dipped low, Sarah stood beside Caleb. Paint flecks on her cheek, her guard slightly down. She looked at him, voice low. What changed you? He watched Lily chase light with a yellow crayon. Her drawing, he said. It made me see what I'd lost, and what I still had time to grow. Sarah studied him for a long beat. Then she handed him a clean brush. Then let's grow something real. But just as their mural neared completion, Greg returned, and this time he wasn't alone. A man in a suit stood beside him, holding legal documents, and on top, the words Petition for Custody Review. The petition sat between them, unfolded, unbelievable. On the community center desk, surrounded by jars of markers, paper birds hanging from the ceiling, it didn't belong. Like Greg didn't belong. Cutting in, shouts up, I'm doing what you won't, Caleb. You think this little crayon farm makes you a father? Greg's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Caleb stood tall, calm on the outside, a storm on the inside. Quietly, you forged a breakup letter. You turned my life into a lie. Greg sneered. I saved you from wasting your future on sidewalk romance. Sarah's jaw clenched. She stepped forward, sharply. You stole our family. Lily peeked from the mural corner, clutching a sketchbook, eyes wide. Caleb dropped his voice, soft but steel-lined. Leave this place.
Stood out. From Sarah, unopened, deleted, dated years back. He opened it. Inside, 6 messages. One said, I'm pregnant. Another, please just talk to me. Another, if you want nothing to do with us, I'll stop writing. But she deserves more. His fingers trembled. The last one had a photo. Newborn Lily, pink hat cradled against Sarah's chest. He deleted them all. Next morning, Caleb entered the community center with a printed folder. Sarah looked up. He handed her the papers silently. She read, page by page, then looked at him, eyes wet. You never saw these? No. She hugged them to her chest. Lily entered from the hallway, her voice soft. What's wrong? Sarah knelt beside her. Daddy didn't leave us. Someone tricked him. Lily's brow furrowed. Why would anyone do that? Caleb knelt too, voice breaking. Because they thought money mattered more than love. Lily blinked. Then reached into her sketchbook, pulled out a folded paper. Crayon, lines, bold red. A flower with 3 petals. She gave it to him. I drew this when you first came back. I didn't know why, but it felt like hope. He held it, hands shaking. Can I keep it? She nodded. It's yours. That afternoon, Caleb met with the board at Holt Equity. Greg sat at the head of the table, smug. Until Caleb dropped the folder in front of him. Internal audit shows you filtered my email for keywords. You blocked personal senders, manipulated decisions to protect your shares. Greg's smirk faltered. The others leaned in. Caleb continued. I'm stepping down as lead portfolio chair, but not before freezing Greg's access. Legal is waiting. You can't do this. Oh, I already did. Greg stood, furious. But no one moved to stop Caleb. He turned, walked out, free, for the first time in years. That night, Caleb returned to the shelter. Lily greeted him at the door, holding up a new drawing. It's us in a hot air balloon, he smiled. You think we'll fly that high? She grinned. Only if you stop being scared. Sarah laughed from the kitchen. You hear the boss, Holt? Caleb looked between them. He pulled Lily's crayon flower from his pocket, placed it on the fridge with a magnet shaped like a heart. Symbol of what almost broke them, now holding them together. As they stood under the mural's arch, brushes in hand, Caleb asked softly, What should we paint next? Lily answered with a giggle, A forever house, with windows full of light. Sarah just smiled. But outside, a storm was forming. And this time, it wasn't Greg. It was the media. And they had questions, lots of them. The wall had once been blank, peeling brick, a remnant of Brooklyn's forgotten corners. But today, it pulsed with life. Brush strokes in lavender and gold swept across the concrete, guided by small hands and hopeful hearts. Lily stood on a stool, arms flecked with turquoise paint. Dad, look what I made. She pointed to a crayon-sketched sun they'd
just outlined in paint. Its rays cradled 3 stick figures, hands linked. Caleb stepped back, eyes damp. Softly, It's beautiful. Sarah stood beside him, wiping a streak of coral off her cheek. Teasing, You missed a spot. Starts laughing. Caleb chuckled. I missed a lot of things, Sarah, sad. Whispers, but not this time. They'd opened the community art center that morning. Kids from the shelter, local teens, even elderly neighbors came, drawn in by murals, crayons, laughter. No speeches, no headlines, just color, healing. Caleb let go of business calls, let go of Greg's chaos, let go of fear. He watched Lily guide a shy boy in mixing green. Her world was wider now, and he got to be part of it. Sarah, clipboard in hand, organized a sign-up sheet for weekend workshops. They were a team, not romantic, but united. And that was enough, for now. Later, as dusk fell and the last volunteers headed home, Lily tugged Caleb's sleeve. Come see the roof. They climbed the stairs. The rooftop garden had transformed, small potted herbs, reused wood benches, hanging fairy lights. She'd drawn it months ago. Now it lived. Whispers. I planted this mint myself. Sarah helped. Caleb crouched beside her. It smells like home. Lily smiled, then paused. Can I ask something real? He nodded. Why did you leave Mommy? His chest tightened, sad. Because I believed someone who didn't deserve my trust. I was scared and stupid. She looked at the mint. But you came back, softly. I'll never leave again. She reached into her backpack, pulled out the original drawing, the one that started it all. The daddy portrait. It was wrinkled, sun-faded, but still vivid. Excited. I want to hang this in the center. Caleb's eyes shimmered. It belongs there. She nodded, then looked over the edge. Will other kids like me get to draw too? He put an arm around her shoulders. They will. And their art will mean something. Next morning, reporters showed up. A headline had leaked. Finance CEO trades stocks for sidewalk chalk. Caleb stepped out front. No suit, no tie, just jeans and a smudge of yellow on his wrist. They asked about Greg. He said, "The company's fine, but my family? That's my legacy." They asked if Lily was his daughter. He smiled. "She's my light." They asked about Sarah. "She's the reason I'm here, stronger than I ever was." One reporter gestured to the wall. "Why a mural?" Caleb glanced at the sun Lily had painted, softly. "Because when the past is too heavy, color gives you somewhere to..." In sidewalk chalk. And second chances? Subscribe for more heartfelt stories like Caleb and Lily's, where family is found, not bought, where color replaces silence, and love gets a new